מחנה לא ירא ליבי אם תקום אולי מלחמה בזויס אני בויתח אם תחנה אולי מחנה לא ירא ליבי אם תקום אולי מלחמה בזויס אני בויתח.
Hello everyone, as we continue through the shofar blowing of Elul, in which prayer service do we blow shofar? And I believe the answer is, what's the reason to blow shofar? If the reason is, as the Rav Yos said, to do tshuva, then the more the merrier. And therefore the Torah, who brings this reason, comes along and says, Nohagin be'ashkenaz, litkoa bechol boker ve'erev, acharat tefillah. From this perspective, if the reason is tshuva, then why remind the people just to do tshuva in the morning? They're going to go home at night, maybe do averas. So remind them at night as well. And the Rama brings this in Shulchan Aruch. V'yesh mekamot shetokim gam kein arvit. Eliyahu Rabbah says that this is the minhag in Prague. If the reason is to do tshuva, then why do tshuva only in the morning? Do tshuva in the evening too. So the Mata Ephraim, who's Rav Ephraim Margaliot, who many of our minhagim of the Yomim Noraim are based on, says, V'yesh tokin gankin achar tfilat arvit. The Chaye Yadam has a little different formulation. He says not to blow shofar in the morning and night, but rather there are places that blow shofar at mincha. Now that's a subtle difference maybe. Some people do daven mincha ma'ariv, but there's a big difference. Because I don't think that he would have said that if not for his assumption that the shofar blowing is not because of tshuva, but rather because of something totally different. The minhagim of Rav Isaac Tirna, way before the Ramah, recording many of the minhagim of Ashkenaz, comes along and says to blow shofar, and to do so the entire month, stop on Erev Rosh Hashanah, continue on Rosh Hashanah, altogether 30 days, and he even brings a nice pasuk to remember it, Tiku b'chodesh shofar, namely, blow shofar for a month, and that's what we do. He sees a very natural flow between Elul shofar blowing and Rosh Hashanah shofar blowing. If that's the case, maybe it's not because of tshuva. Maybe it's to sort of take whatever shofar does on Rosh Hashanah and expand it to the entire month prior. If that's the case, when do we blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah? Only during the day. The Mishnah in Megillah says explicitly that you can only blow shofar after sunrise. That's the case. You can understand why the Ramah brings this and says, that you only blow shofar during the day, because if it's like the shofar blowing of Rosh Hashanah, not just a way to remind people to do tshuva, then Rosh Hashanah we only blow during the day, not at night. So too, in Elul, you'll only blow during the day. And therefore, Rabbi Ephraim Margaliot says there are places that blow after Ma'ariv, but I never heard where I am, namely Eastern Europe, that people do this. So if the reason is tshuva, do tshuva all day, night, whenever it might be. But if the reason is to sort of expand shofar blowing of Rosh Hashanah, then it would be subject to the same rules and regulations as Rosh Hashanah, namely blowing shofar only by day. So if you want to blow twice a day, the Chaye Elam is willing to concede, but at mincha, not after sunset. So, how do we posket on this? Hard to know. Bottom line is, most places anyway blow during the day, but there is a beautiful tshuva of Rav Moshe Feinstein. He says there was a place that they forgot to blow at Shachris. Should you make it up at Mincha or at Ma'ariv? So, he says, indeed the Ramah says that there are places that blow at Ma'ariv. Those are his words. However, he says, maybe he doesn't necessarily mean that. Namely, maybe he meant Arvit, but he meant Mincha Ma'ariv, like the Chaye Adam. Or he meant people davening Ma'ariv early, namely when it's still light outside, after Plaga Mincha. Why? Delo mistaber sheyitkeu balayla, she'eino et ratzon betchilata ad achar chatzot. First of all, just like by Slichot, between nightfall and midnight, it's the worst time to ever ask for anything, and therefore it's not a favorable time before God. Therefore, we don't say slichos then, and we shouldn't blow shofar then. He obviously assumes that shofar blowing is not a means for us to do tshuva, it's a means for a prayer to God, and therefore do it at a favorable time. And therefore, he says that indeed we do it at Shachris because most people come to Shachris, less people come to Mincha. But if for some reason they didn't blow at Shachris, why not blow at Mincha? So once again, if the assumption is that it's tshuva, do as much tshuva as possible, morning, night, whatever it might be. But if in some way or another, it's not a means to tshuva, but as we said, it's a prayer, albeit without words, just like on Rosh Hashanah, then it would be subject to the rules of Rosh Hashanah only by day. Not to mention the fact that since it's not a means for us to do tshuva, but a prayer to God, only do it at a favorable time, namely, not between nightfall and midnight. So a very small question, do we blow once a day or twice a day, is far more fundamental. It's not just about how many times you blow. It's what's the reason we blow at all. If it's tshuva, blow as much as you want. If it's an expansion of a prayer without words that we do on Rosh Hashanah, it would be subject to the rules of Rosh Hashanah.
Online milchama, bizay sani boiteya.